Hello viewers, welcome back to the lab. So it is repair time today. What we have on the bench is actually a disassembled Somfy, hang on, it's a roll-up Wirefree RTS electric roller blind motor, or shades if you're in another part of the world. So this has been part of an electric blind which has been in the spare room for about 13 years, and unfortunately it suddenly decided not to work. You press the remote and you could hear the motor just go and then it's just stopped. So I had a look around. You can't get this motor anymore, this particular one. I think there are modern equivalents, but I think they were like getting on for like £200, so quite a lot of money. So I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. I might as well take it apart and see if there's something that can be repaired. And that's what I did. Initially, I thought it might have been just the grease in the gearbox had dried up and it stopped it working. But once I started taking it apart, that all seemed fine. All the gears are good. And eventually I got down to either the motor or the electronics. So the motor actually disconnected quite easily, so that was easy to test on its own, and it turned out that motor, this one here, was actually faulty. So this is a Mabuchi made motor. It's quite small considering what it's actually doing, and the model number is... And it is model number FK180SH-17140. I said that's made by Mabuchi. Now I did a bit of a quick Google around, and it turns out that these are quite a common motor in all sorts of products, and they're quite readily available. So I went and bought two off eBay, and they came from China. It appears to be a genuine Mabuchi motor. I can't see any differences in the manufacturing between the two, so I'd say this is a proper genuine motor. So what I've done, I've unsoldered the old motor and I've put the board back on, and I've just started reinstalling it back into the gearbox. So what we're going to do in this video is basically going to be an untear down. So I'm going to go through and assemble this, so hopefully if somebody has a similar issue, you can retrace my steps and take yours apart and replace the motor if you need to. So before we go and put it together, let's just go through all of the components. So this is the aluminium tube which makes up the body of the motor. The motor and gearbox are in this end, and the electronics is in this end. So this is the bit that sticks out of the roller blind tube. There's an end cap which just slides in there. This is the sensor rotator, so the blind knows where the motor knows where the blind is, so that fits on there. That is the drive wheel. Obviously these are going to be slightly different versions depending on what type of roller blind tube you have. On the end we have the motor and gearbox. So this is a three-stage planetary gearbox, which then outputs onto the shaft, and then there's a plastic bushing which fits in the end just to stop it all falling out. And there's a few little bits and bobs. There's a little plastic piece here which fits over on this piece of plastic. You'll see that when I put it back together. Yeah, these are the screws which hold that on. And there's a big C-clip which goes around this to secure it. The electronics, quite a sophisticated looking board, but these roller blind motors do have some quite nice features. So yep, so there's a radio receiver and stuff in there, and of course you've got some Hall effect sensors just here to sense this as it rotates around. Obviously this is going to be inside the tube. So I think what we should do is crack on and get this assembled. What I'm going to do first is install the gearbox onto the tube. The screws to secure this inside the tube are actually at the bottom of the gearbox. So you can't remove this without disassembling the gearbox. So I need to put this on, put the screws in, and then reassemble the gearbox with it attached to this. It's probably, I don't think there is a right or wrong way, but there's probably the way it went in before is probably goes in a bit easier. So that's now attached to there, and there's two tiny little screws which just secure it in place. They are a little bit tricky to get access to, so I'm just using a pair of tweezers just to drop them into the hole, and then I can grab them with the screwdriver. You can see the two larger screws, which are the motor screws, and then the smaller ones are the screws that hold the gearbox to the aluminium tube. There we go, so that's now secure on there. So what we need to do first is build the Planetary Gears up. So the grease that was in here originally was your pretty basic, bog standard, cheap grease, but I'm going to be popping in some nice molly grease, so spare no expense. Now, before I pop this plastic washer thing in, I'm just going to point out that there does appear to be two sides to it. There seems to be a shiny, smooth side and a moulded side. So I would hazard a guess that, I didn't take a note of how it came out, but I would imagine that the smooth, shiny side is the side that touches the gears. So probably not massively important, but try and keep it as it should be. All looks good. Now I'm just going to put some grease on the internal gears. I think there's probably enough in here anyway, but it's always good to spread it around a little bit. So we can insert this inside the tube. It's going to need a bit of wiggling. Of course, all the gears need to mesh, so I think that's it. Now we have this sintered bronze bushing which fits in the end. Now when I took this apart, there's a few little tabs, little dimples which poke out and push into 4 little holes around the circumference of the tube. Couldn't get this off by pushing the tabs in, so I actually had to drill them out, which means there's now no real way that this is going to be secured into the tube. So what I'm actually going to do is, that's with it in place, I'm just going to put some very, very small screws just to secure that in. There's no load on it, so just a couple of, or 4 screws just to screw in there, just to hold that bushing in place. That should be fine. And you only have to think, if you are doing that, then make sure it doesn't foul with anything that's in the roller blind tube. Let's clear this up because we don't need the grease anymore. To go on. nice and easy. So the motor wire just sticks out the end of the tube, just to give you enough length to attach it to the end of the control board. Pop that on there. So the next thing that needs to go on is my motor adapter plate. Now this I have some electrical connections on the end, and this is metal. So when that's on there, there's a slight chance that could possibly short out something on there. So I'm just going to put some electrical tape over that just to cover it up. So when I was putting the end cap on there, I hadn't realised that I hadn't put this on, and of course because I've got those little screws, it meant I just had to remove those again to get it on. So right now, before final assembly, there is actually two small neodymium magnets which are placed in this little recess here. It's interesting that they've done this. I think they've placed some additional magnets on there just to increase the torque in the motor a little bit. Probably to increase its torque capacity on the actual blind motor. So I'm just going to put these back on. Unfortunately, I didn't make a note of which way round they were. And that should just then snap into there, like that. Hopefully that's the right way. Make sure it works. Now this will only run the motor for a short period of time because this won't be rotating, so yeah. Right, well that is it. So that is my electric roller blind, all nicely repaired. The cost of the motor for two of them shipped from China was £6. There was nothing to pay when they arrived in the UK, so aside from a little bit of faffing around, taking it apart, re-greasing the gearbox, cleaning everything up, changing the motor, that's literally, there's no other expense other than buying the new motors for £6. And that's saved me hundreds of pounds potentially in trying to buy a new motor. So they're well worth doing. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you've got one of these motors and it's failed in the same way and you want to replace the motor in it, you can use this as a bit of a guide. So I hope you found this one useful. If you're a regular viewer to my channel, hopefully it'll be a bit of a welcome distraction from the usual antics. So there we go. Okay, thanks very much for watching everybody, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.